But to me, from the beginning, I always thought it was some kind of contractor test or a DoD test. But most certainly, these are not UAPs. These are likely U.S. drones from a three-letter agency or a contractor.
From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States.
Now, what about the drones that we have been seeing on the East Coast that are military style? I mean, it appears to be drones that the Navy has purchased or it has used in the past. These drones that can change shape and move pretty fast, pretty agile in the air, have worked with the Navy. They're stationed off of the East Coast. Do drones like that ping, or is it kind of the same situation? Unless it goes off in a protected airspace, they can pretty much fly around and not be on radar.
Well, they could ping. There's kind of a caveat there. When drones fly in the air, typically they give off signatures within the RF spectrum. Those signatures include, radio frequencies, and they'll communicate with a ground controller. Now, for military and other advanced drones, we're getting into an area of autonomy and AI where they're not going to give off a signature. So they're not going to be as detectable. And you couple that with materials, how radar can deflect or absorb these radar frequencies. So from a military perspective and from an advanced drone perspective, they're not necessarily going to be detectable from conventional radars that we deploy within the continental U.S. So
if it was a spy drone, they wouldn't have their lights on, and it wouldn't be detectable on radar because they'd obviously not want to be detected.
Right, and so that's part of the narrative. And to me, when I initially saw this, and I don't deal with this kind of technology currently. I'm still a weapons engineer, and I work for a contractor. But when I did, I helped stand up, the counter UAS task force. I was the head of an organization that did a lot of red teaming within the DoD years ago. So from this perspective, though, when it comes to detecting these things, and whether it's a military or not, my first impression was always that it was a test. Now, there's some narratives that came up, as far as nuclear material detection. I was skeptic about that just because of the payload. We use what's called a size, weight, and power analysis when it comes to these small drones, and to put a detector on there to detect nuclear material. It can be done, but at distances that these drones were not flying. So you're talking like 100 meters or closer for specific sensors that detect nuclear material. But to me, from the beginning, I always thought it was some kind of contractor test or a DoD test. But most certainly, these are not UAPs. These are likely U.S. drones from a three-letter agency or a contractor doing certain tests, and they can fly, legally through the FAA. They can fly within those airspaces. So that's part of what I think Congress is trying to push, is to change. And to me, it has to be driven from the FAA. Change the rules, ensure everything's registered. Maybe update some radars, domestic radars, and most certainly update DoD radars on domestic bases to include detection of these smaller drones. I mean, there was even, I live near Hill Air Force Base, and we did a four-year crest, this reporter here locally, and he discovered that there's been drones in the last 4 years that have made incursions onto Hill Air Force Base and hovered over a fuel tank, aviation fuel tank, and then disappeared. So most absolutely, these things, to me, in my mind, there should be funding allocated and the NDAA to cover these kinds of emerging threats.